Listen closely. You who feel the world's hidden tremors beneath your skin, beware the silent poison of overgiving, for it transforms your golden heart into a cage of your own making. You've walked through life as a conduit of emotions, a walking sanctuary for others' pain, yet every gift you offer is a drop drawn from your own well that never replenishes itself. This is your first and final warning. If generosity becomes your only armor, you will dissolve into the very sea of need you so desperately wish to calm. You stand at the threshold of a dawn. You no longer recognize your boundaries as porous as mist. Each time you reach out, you invite the world's wounds into the fragile cathedral of your blood and bone. The empath's curse is to mistake being needed for being worthy, to believe that love is measured by the weight of sacrifice. Yet, beneath this myth lies a darker truth. When you overgive, you hand your power away, surrendering your sovereignty to those who will drain you dry without remorse. Some say that empaths are born with an extra valve on the heart, a crack that lets in every sorrow, every longing. But this crack grows wider with each favor, each unreciprocated kindness, until it becomes a canyon that swallows you whole. You feel responsible for other people's storms, convinced that your presence eases their thunder. But recall Marcus Aurelius's words, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Are you strong or merely depleted by the weight you carry? Energy bleeds where attention flows, and yours is a leak you cannot mend until you recognize its source. You believe that saying no is a betrayal, anathema to your empathic oath, yet silence can be a boundary more potent than any spoken defense. Seneca cautioned against pouring from an empty cup. If you pour until nothing remains, who then is left to receive the life-giving water? You must reclaim the vessel of self, seal the cracks with intention, and choose what you permit to seep in. In the shadows of your psyche, a darker twin waits the wounded healer who remains wounded by her own generosity. She crafts her identity out of martyrdom, believing that pain is a badge of honor. But this shadow self holds you hostage, demanding endless devotion while refusing to return a fraction of the care you lavish. It whispers that compassion without limit is virtue, even as it corrodes your self-worth. Third eyes dilated with empathy often blur the line between healing and codependency. You become addicted to the drama of helping, your nervous system ignited by the highs of rescue, not unlike a moth drawn to the fatal glow of a flame. Modern trauma theory tells us that rescuers and victims become entangled in loops of reactivation, each believing that without the cycle, their existence lacks meaning. But meaning cannot blossom from endless sacrifice. It arises when you stand firmly in your own truth. Imagine you are in a forest of souls, each lost wanderer clutching a torch you must carry. Day after day, you collect these burdens, believing you are the only guide who can navigate their darkness. Yet every torch dims your own flame, and before long you wander blind, lost among ghosts you once intended to save. The anima and animus dance within you, pleading for integration, urging you to balance, giving with receiving, passion with detachment. Codependency is a subtle poison. It masquerades as love, but it demands withdrawal as repayment. Epictetus taught that freedom is the ability to choose what lies within your control. You cannot control another's sorrow, but you can control your response to their sorrow. Every time you tether your sense of worth to another's approval, you forfeit your autonomy and empower the very forces you wish to rescue. You have felt the shame of neglecting your own hunger, of skipping meals to soothe someone else's hunger for attention. You have watched your tears blur into theirs, convinced that shared suffering is a testament to unity. But unity forged in pain is brittle. It snaps under the slightest strain. True connection emerges from the clarity of two complete selves, not from the fusion of two broken parts. Within your chest lies a phoenix waiting to rise, but it cannot take flight until the ashes of overgiving cease to bind its wings. You must learn the art of selective compassion, offering only what you can replenish, defending the borders of your heart with firm yet loving resolve. Affirm your own sanctity by refusing to rescue every lost soul, remembering that even the Divine Mother shapes her gifts with discernment. This path will demand fierce honesty, naming your limits, speaking your truth, watching relationships fracture as you reclaim pieces of yourself. But in the crucible of this transformation, you will emerge sovereign, no longer the world's sponge, but its luminous mirror, reflecting love without draining its source. Darkness will no longer cling to you as a cloak. You will stand in light, unafraid of your own boundaries, unshakable in your self-worth. You find yourself ensnared in a silent choreography, repeating gestures of kindness long after your spirit has tired of performing. Every smile you offer becomes an echo of the last echo, a ghost of your own intention. You bend so far backward in service that your spine aches with the memory of straightness. In this dance of overgiving, you mistake endurance for love, tolerating disrespect as proof of your compassion. Yet each concession carves a hollow beneath your ribs, hollow that no amount of empathy can fill. Observe how your voice grows faint when you ask for what you need. It tiptoes around conflict soft as a whisper lost in a thunderstorm. When you finally edge toward a boundary, your own shadow, scarred by fear of abandonment, rises to sabotage you, whispering that self-interest is sin. You yield once more, offering yourself on the altar of someone else's comfort. This pattern, this self-betrayal fuels the narcissist's flame, for where there is constant concession, dominance finds room to swell. You've been taught that empathy is a gift, yet blind. Generosity is cruelty to the self. Modern trauma theory reveals the loops you're trapped in. Rescuer victim persecutor roles in a play written long before you took the stage. In your earliest wounds, you felt that love arrived only when you surrendered. Now, decades later, you unconsciously recreate that dynamic, hoping for a different outcome. But as Seneca reminds you, no man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. You are stuck proving yourself to everyone but the one who matters most to you. Feel the tension in your chest as you replay arguments you never had the courage to voice. The empath's heart is both battleground and sanctuary, and when unresolved emotions linger, they become ghosts that haunt every exchange. You replay each interaction like a vinyl record stuck on a scratch, overanalyzing every glance, every tone, seeking the hidden meaning that will justify your pain. Yet true clarity arrives only when you stop seeking validation in the eyes of others and turn inward, confronting your own unresolved grief. The anima, that flickering flame within, urges you to integrate these fractured parts. It calls you to meet your wounded child with fierce tenderness, to lift them from the ashes of unspoken hurt and remind them they deserve rest. When you lavish compassion inward, you forge a vessel sturdy enough to hold your own tears and then perhaps a few drops of someone else's. This is the alchemical marriage of giving and receiving, the crucible where wholeness is born. But beware the animus, shadowed by belief in your unworthiness, may rise in rebellion. It will question every act of self-care, whispering that you are selfish for wanting solace. These internal saboteurs conspire to keep you small. Marcus Aurelius counseled, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Apply this to your inner dialogue, as well filter out the lies you tell yourself piece by piece, until your mind becomes a clear mirror, reflecting your inherent value. Relationships forged in imbalance mirror a house built on sand, stunning at first glance, but incapable of withstanding the tide. Whenever you offer more than you can replenish, you cement that shaky foundation. In these toxic unions, you become a martyr, whose suffering is applauded but never honored. You are lauded for your sacrifice until you collapse under its weight, at which point you're cast aside as a cautionary tale. Yet in that crucifixion lies your moment of awakening, the realization that suffering is not the currency of love. You carry within you an oracle of wisdom, a sentinel that knows when a relationship becomes a drain rather than a wellspring. Learn to consult this inner guide. Listen for the fierce stillness in your core, that quiet voice that knows when kindness is a chained boot dragging you down. Honor that voice by drawing a line, by claiming a space where your needs are not negotiable. It may feel like exile at first, but this is the path back to yourself, Stoic courage demands that you face rejection with calm resolve. When someone recoils at your newfound boundaries, you stand unharmed, for their response lies outside your dominion. You offer your truth without apology, and in doing so, you reclaim the light that was dimmed by others' shadows. Each act of self-defense is a reclamation of sovereignty, stitch by stitch, restoring the tapestry of your identity. As you practice this sacred art of balanced compassion, you will find your gifts multiply rather than diminish. The pendulum swings from deprivation to abundance, for you have learned to refill your own cup. You become a beacon, not a leech, for those who seek warmth, yet your flame is no longer at the mercy of every passing wind. You have transmuted the curse of the empath into a conscious calling, one that nourishes both giver and receiver. You begin to sense the subtle shift beneath your skin, the tremor of autonomy stirring to life. It manifests as heat in your fingertips, a call to realign your energy with intention rather than reaction. No longer will you pour yourself into the empty cup of another's expectations. Instead, you craft a new ritual to pause, to breathe, to ask what serves this moment and what serves my becoming. In these pauses, you confront the echo chamber of your mind, where every thought has echoed through the chambers of your old habits. You question the beliefs that once anchored you. I must fix, I must save, I must atone, and watch them drift away like fallen leaves. You replace them with declarations of self-respect. I choose my limits. I honor my rest. I protect my peace. These words are not grand or poetic. They are simple weapons wielded in the reclaiming of yourself. Still, the shadows lurk at the edges of this newfound clarity. The wounded healer, that spectre born of your overgiving past, emerges to test your resolve. It conjures scenarios where your new boundaries fracture relationships, where your assertiveness becomes aggression. It asks, what if they leave you alone to your emptiness? But you have learned that better loneliness with integrity than connection through decay. You know the virtue of solitude. It is a sanctuary where your spirit kneels before its own mirror and sees not a servant, but a sovereign. Feel the tremors again, but this time they are the quakes of self-authoring. You revise the script of your life, one deliberate choice at a time. When someone asks more than you can give, you offer instead the gift of honest presence. I hear you, but I cannot carry this for you. This simple sentence becomes a lifeline both for you and for the other, for it draws a clear distinction between empathy and enmeshment. It teaches them that your care has shape and that they must learn to stand in the architecture of their own worth. Underneath all of this lies the deep current of individuation, Jung's call to become the fullest expression of yourself. You integrate the parts you once exiled, the bitter anger at misuse, the quiet grief over unseen sacrifices, the fierce yearning to be seen. These parts are not stains on your soul, they are pigments of your mosaic. You welcome them home, knowing that a whole self cannot be drained, but only ennobled. Stoic philosophy threads through each moment of testing. You recall Epictetus. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When disappointment ripples through a relationship you once tethered yourself to, you observe it without recoil, allowing it to pass. You learn the art of indifference to outcomes that lie beyond your sphere. This detachment is not cold. It is the warm distance between a lighthouse and the storm, unshakable in its beam. As you deepen this practice, you notice how others respond. Some push back, resentful of the limits you impose. They have grown accustomed to feeding on your generosity and now starve on your independence. Yet others respond with relief, as though a weight they didn't know they bore has been lifted. They mirror your transformation, rising to meet you as full empowered beings rather than hollow dependents. Your relationships evolve from one-sided rescues into mutual exchanges of growth. You discover that healthy empathy is a dance, not a solo. You give and allow yourself to receive. You speak your truth and listen when truth speaks back. This balance resonates with your core, a steady beat that guides every interaction. No longer do you navigate by the compass of fear. You chart your course by the magnet of self-trust. In quiet moments, You feel a profound gratitude for the journey, every moment of exhaustion that drove you inward, every tear that mapped the contours of your limits. These trials were the forge in which your self-sovereignty was tempered. You honor them not as regrets, but as milestones that heralded your emergence. And so you stand now, neither martyr nor martyr-maker, but a sovereign empath, fierce in your boundaries, tender in your compassion, unafraid of the edges you carve for yourself. The world still pulses with need, but you engage from a place of wholeness, never depletion. Your heart is no longer a well run dry, but a reservoir of intentional love, deep enough to nourish without drowning. A new rhythm pulses through your veins, now a cadence forged not by obligation, but by choice. You recognize the moments when your skin prickles with the urge to overgive, when empathy threatens to flood your borders, and you step aside, breathing into the space between stimulus and response. In that silence, Logos speaks the language of reason that reminds you that generosity must spring from fullness, not fracture. Your awareness sharpens like a blade as you notice old reflexes rising to greet you, instincts programmed by childhood contracts you never signed. You recall the little you who promised endless caretaking in exchange for a flicker of approval. That child still lives within your bloodstream, trembling at the thought of withdrawal. Yet you have learned to cradle her with presence instead of sacrifice, to offer reassurance without surrender. With each act of internal witnessing, you starve the ghost of martyrdom until it dissolves into air. The interplay of anima and animus hums beneath the surface. The anima's compassionate warmth and the animus's discerning fire now coalesce into balanced alchemy. Where once you might have poured every ounce of feeling into another's cup, you now assess. Does this serve my soul's expansion, or simply refill someone else's emptiness? You no longer mistake obligation for destiny. Instead, you choose alignment with your highest self. Observe how your relationships shift under this light. Conversations you once steered towards someone else's needs now begin with you. Here is what stirs in me. Those 4 words sound simple, but they establish your presence like a lighthouse greeting the harbor. Some listeners falter at this honesty, unpracticed in receiving raw humanity. Others lean in, encouraged to speak their own truths. This reciprocity feels unfamiliar at first, but slowly becomes the bedrock of your connections. Third-person provocation arises. Society applauds the selfless empath, yet shames the empath who dares to care for herself. It whispers that self-preservation is selfishness disguised. But you stand unmoved, for you have tasted the bitterness of depletion and found it wanting. You have glimpsed the ecstasy of balance and refuse to surrender it for the hollow praise of endless giving. Your newfound sovereignty extends to every corner of life. At work, you decline projects that would demand emotional labor beyond your means. You replace yes out of guilt with no, guided by wisdom. At home, you set aside time each evening for ritual journaling movement, or simply sitting in silence, honoring the sanctuary within your bones. You protect these hours as fiercely as you would guard a treasure chest, for within them lies the source of your regenerative power. Yet transformation is not linear. There will be days when the old patterns masquerade as necessity, when guilt claws at your resolve and pity lures you back into service. On these days, you lean into your community, sharing your struggle with those who understand. You summon courage from vulnerability, admitting I faltered today, and in that admission, you rebuild your strength. For sovereignty is not the absence of stumble, but the grace to rise. Trauma theory teaches that healing occurs in relationship, not in isolation. So you surround yourself with allies who respect your boundaries, who celebrate your victories, and who mirror your worth when your own vision blurs. In this circle you practice the art of mutual nourishment, offering empathy without enmeshment, receiving support without shame. As you move through this world, you notice that your gifts have multiplied in potency. A single act of compassionate presence now carries the weight of volumes of past sacrifices. People lean into your calm steadiness, not because you exhaust yourself on their behalf, but because you shine with authentic warmth. You become that reservoir of intentional love, a well sustained by self-respect rather than self-erasure. Every day you revisit Marcus Aurelius's reminder: waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. In your context, this means embodying the good empath, not as martyr, but as guardian of both your heart and theirs. You radiate empathy with discernment, speak your truth with kindness, and safeguard your energy with unshakable resolve. Though the world may still tremble with need, you stand at its center, unmoved by the tides of expectation. You offer a hand to those who ask, but you no longer chase shadows. Your boundaries are not walls, but gates they open to connection and close to depletion. In this sovereignty, you discover that the empath's true calling is not to heal everyone, but to heal yourself, and in doing so, to serve as a living testament to the power of balanced compassion. Your presence now carries a gravity born of choice rather than compulsion, a force field woven from self-love and discernment. You step into each day, knowing that empathy need not be endless to be profound. You feel the alive tension between giving and guarding, and you hold it like a sacred tension, a living chord that resonates with the fullness of your being. In the marketplace of emotions, you no longer trade at a loss. Every offering you make is measured against the currency of your own vitality. When you speak, your words land with clarity, because they are not filtered through the haze of people-pleasing. When you listen, your attention is a gift, not an obligation, because it springs from genuine curiosity rather than a need to prove your worth. You have learned that authenticity is the greatest magnet for deep connection. Still, shadows stir at the edges of this newfound strength. Guilt, that old accomplice, may return in the guise of altruism. It will suggest that any exertion of selfish boundaries is a betrayal of your empathic oath. Yet you have tasted the bitterness of that betrayal before it was betrayal by others of your unguarded heart. Now if guilt appears, you meet it with compassion, acknowledging its roots in fear, then gently guiding it back to the light of your affirmed sovereignty. The cycles continue, but each turn is less of a loop and more of a spiral upward. When you catch yourself slipping, offering too much, shrinking your needs, you pause, you breathe. You place a hand on your chest, feeling its steady beat, and you remember that this heart is not a well to be emptied, but a drum that guides your steps. With that reminder, you realign, recalibrated by your own steady rhythm. You notice how the world responds when you no longer react. A friend who once leaned heavily on your energy now learns to carry her own. A colleague who expected emotional bailouts now respects the limits you hold. In that respect lies the true seed of change. By honoring yourself, you teach others to honor you. Boundaries are not just protections. They are lessons in self-responsibility for everyone around you. Epictetus's wisdom echoes. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. You have declared what you wish to be: an empath untouched by excess, a soul radiant with balanced care, and now you live that truth. Each day becomes a rite of renewal, a deliberate choice to move through compassion's fine line between nourishment and depletion. Imagine how you will carry this practice forward. You will continue to refine your rituals: morning meditations that set intention midday, pauses that restore equilibrium, evening reflections that honor both successes and stumbles. You will hold space for your inner world with the same reverence you once reserved for others, and in doing so, you will generate a silent revolution, showing by example that true empathy begins at home within the walls of your own sacred sanctuary. The final test awaits not in grand crises, but in the gentle erosion of complacency. It arrives in moments of comfort, where old patterns beckon with the familiar allure of self-neglect. It whispers, "Just this once step over your line, or they need you more now." When that moment comes, you will remember the taste of freedom, the thrill of self-possession, and you will choose yourself again. In that choice lies the legacy of your transformation. Soon, the last part of your journey will unfold, not as an end, but as the full flowering of all that you have sown. The next moment you speak will carry the weight of completion, the promise of rebirth. In that culmination you will stand fully sovereign, a beacon of balanced compassion, a living testament to the power of limits honored and love preserved. A hush settles around you as you stand on the precipice of your own becoming the echoes of past sacrifices, fading into the gentle hum of self-possession. You feel the fullness of your heart as a sanctuary rather than a crossroads, each beat a testament to lessons carved through fire. No longer are you at the mercy of others' demands. You are the architect of your own devotion, shaping your generosity with intention and respect. In this final awakening, you see how every choice to honor your needs has rippled outward, transforming your world. Relationships that once fed off your exhaustion have either strengthened, reborn in mutual respect, or dissolved their purpose, fulfilled in teaching you the costs of overgiving. Those who remain stand before you as equals drawn to the authenticity of your presence rather than the exhaustible fuel of your pity. You acknowledge the wounded healer within, once so desperate to mend others that her own wounds festered in neglect. Today, she stands beside her healed counterpart, a testament to integration. She no longer bleeds at every cut in the collective spirit. She binds her own wounds first, and then offers her renewed strength in service. Shadow and light have merged, forming a single stream of compassionate power that flows freely, no longer damned by fear. Your energetic boundaries now glimmer like an inner girdle, a protective halo rather than an imprisoning wall. Empathy no longer means absorption, but resonance. You attune to another's frequency without losing the melody of your own. When someone reaches for your strength, you offer a hand, not a lifeline, a shared breath, not a breach of your sanctuary. This is the art of sovereign empathy, an exchange of equals, not a one-sided surrender. Modern trauma theory and Stoic wisdom converge in your practice. You understand that healing unfolds in relationship, yet true liberty is found within. You remain open to the world's suffering without being consumed by it, holding space for pain while holding fast to your peace. You have mastered the pause between stimulus and response, choosing actions aligned with your highest self rather than ingrained obligation. In every moment you affirm your worth. You are not the world's balm unless you first soothe your own soul. Self-care is your sacred vow. Boundaries are your declarations of love. You protect your energy fiercely, knowing that depletion is the thief of purpose and the enemy of growth. With each no you speak, you carve space for a more profound yes to life, to love, to your own becoming. Now, as you gaze upon the landscape of your transformation, you feel a deep gratitude for the journey, the ache of overgiving, the sting of resentment, the lonely nights of self-doubt, all alchemized into gold by your resilience. You realize that the empath's true strength lies not in infinite giving, but in the courage to give wisely, to stand firm, and to receive life in return. This moment is more than an end. It is the flowering of all you have sown. You emerge sovereign, no longer the world's sponge, but its mirror, reflecting compassion without compromise. Your boundaries are gates of freedom, opening to genuine connection and closing to depletion. You are a living testament to the power of balanced empathy, and so you claim your final truth. Your compassion is your power, not your prison.